Hello and welcome to another episode of the Unwanted Opinions podcast. Jay and I are back recording Tuesday evening. Actually, it's a weird record day for us, Jay, but had to wait for the national championship to get over. That's actually really cool 3-game Saturday and Sunday for Wildcard Weekend. I'm a huge fan of the additional playoff team. So we had to wait for all that. And we're back now. Jay and I are throwing this up on our faces on YouTube. So if whoever
you finally got a face to a name.
If you were a listener and never knew what we looked like, except for our cartoon picture, here you go. Here's Jay. He's repping his Buckeyes always, even though they lost last night.
Andrew Luck beard.
Yeah, he's going a little neck beard. I got my Dunder Mifflin shirt going on. Still sad day that The Office is taken off of Netflix because Peacock sucks, man. Peacock's got ads and it's free, but you got to watch commercials. So I'd rather just watch it on TV. I mean, what is that?
Gotcha.
How does that make any sense?
Free is what it is.
Yeah, it's fine. Well, it was also no, it wasn't free on Netflix, but kind of free to me because I paid for Netflix.
You bummed that Netflix?
You bummed that Netflix for a little bit too.
I did. Now I freaking have to pay for my parents.
That's right. Well, there you go. All right. But anyway, so Jay and I are back here. As always, you can subscribe to the Unwanted Opinions podcast anywhere you get them. Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify. You can subscribe on YouTube. You can check us out on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Unwanted Opinions with Nick and Jay. Email us, unwantedopinionspodcast@gmail.com. You get in touch with us. We love answering your questions. You got comments, just anything you want to just chat. We're here, so get after us.
Good call.
Yeah. So, Jay, let's start with the whereabouts of Kyrie Irving. And
nobody knows.
So, I mean, he was videotaped at a birthday party and whatever you think of masks. We're not going to go down that road. But he didn't have one on in a public setting. And the NBA has sent out like a 900-page document of what you're supposed to wear and don't wear. They just have a lot of rules. And I get it. Exactly. He knows. He's well aware of all this situation. I mean, his teammate Kevin Durant just had to quarantine for a certain odd number of days. But anyways, Kyrie Irving's out, and he's citing it as personal reasons that he's not playing for the team. And Jay, this was a big reason why I was never bought into the Nets, because I was just waiting for something like this. Now, I didn't know it was going to be like this. I didn't know he was just going to take a leave of absence from the team and not really have much communication from them at all. Steve Nash was asked today if he thinks Kyrie will be back sometime soon, and I think all Steve Nash said was sure. So I don't think they're too happy with what he's doing, and it was quicker than I expected, but it happened already.
Kyrie Irving has not been in the right frame of mind ever since I heard him say the earth was flat. Since then, I just think – I don't know if he just goes down too many YouTube rabbit holes, if he just hit that huge shot when he was on the Cavs with LeBron and then just immediately from there thought, okay, I'm the superstar of this league. From here on out, I can basically do whatever I want. What he's doing right now is the exact reason why Boston didn't work when he was there and why the Nets won't work while he's there now. He was a below 500 team all the way up until LeBron got there.
Every year.
That's what I'm saying.
Every year.
Then all of a sudden they go to championship after championship. He decides, I'm the guy. I don't need LeBron. I'm my own player, and I'm going to win my own championships. Goes to Boston and greatly underachieved. And I believe he's going to do the exact same thing here.
They made it farther without him in the playoffs. They were a game away from the NBA Finals.
Okay, let me ask you this.
Him.
Would you rather play with him or James Harden? And I think that's the clear answer for me is James Harden. And that's saying something because I don't think James Harden's ever going to win a championship.
That's tough because I don't enjoy the way James Harden plays basketball. It's not that I dislike him personally. Do we have to take the whole package, or are we just strictly talking basketball?
The whole package. That's what we're talking about. His mindset. That has nothing to do with his shot making.
I'd probably like to play with James.
Yeah, same.
Because at least if he's on the bench, then we can actually play some team basketball when he's not jacking up 27 step back threes and trying to run into the entire team and draw a foul. But
I don't know.
And that's saying a lot because you know my feelings on James Harden.
They might figure this out and win the East just based on pure talent. Once this all comes together, they don't have a shot against the Western teams in my mind.
I don't think they're. I literally don't think they're mentally tough enough to come out of the East. I really don't. I truly don't, because I mean,
I think Philly could take them down.
Before KD went to Golden State, he made the finals one time, and they were close a couple other times, but he also had his moments where he failed in the postseason. And I think that's overlooked because of the just drastic success that he had in Golden State, because of how dominant they were once he joined that team. But he did have his failures in the postseason when he didn't have 3 Hall of Fame teammates by his side, and also a great coach in Steve Kerr, and a great bench in Andre Iguodala and Sean Livingston, and just how good that Warriors team was just unfair. I've talked about it anytime someone will go down that again, but I mean, KD is never the guy who's going to go into the locker room and like give his team like a speech that rallies them around. And Kyrie's not. And Kyrie might try, but a lot of those guys are going to look at him and be like, weren't you gone for like the first 16 games of the season? And didn't you get hurt at like game 52 and you didn't even come train with the team? Because that's what he did to the Celtics. He wasn't even on the bench. Game 7, when they had a chance to go to the NBA Finals, he wasn't even there in the stadium trying to cheer on his team. That's the kind of guy that Kyrie Irving is.
Yeah, the problem with him is he's definitely a me-first guy. And the even bigger issue with that is I think he doesn't care whether you know it or not, and he will publicly
he clearly doesn't.
Guy, I don't really care about you guys. When he came out and said they don't even need a coach, they can coach themselves, like little comments like that. I'm off the Kyrie train. I've been off.
And another comment that he made during the NBA Finals, when his former teammate LeBron, the guy who carried, and Kyrie played well. I can't say that it was just strictly LeBron, but obviously LeBron's the driving force on any team that he's on. He came out on KD's podcast and said, when I look across the court, I see KD as the only player I've ever played with who I trust in a clutch situation.
Yeah.
And it was just the timing of it, where LeBron's in the finals about to win his 4th chip. Kyrie just needed to put his name in the public eye again, just because the guy that he left. And honestly, he probably would have won more championships with LeBron. I mean, if they stayed together, because that year that Golden State gets hurt, if it's KD or if it's LeBron and Kyrie on the Celtics or on the Cavs, they beat that Raptors team with Kawhi, and they beat that Warriors team that had 2 of their 4 best players out with season-ending injuries. So, I mean, I think it's just Kyrie's like, damn, I'm just looking at this and I got to try and steal some attention away from this guy because he's actually winning on the court and I'm not.
Yeah, I mean, LeVert went off without him on the floor. Like,
yeah, I mean, they just lost the other night to the Sixers, even and everybody was there but Kyrie. Really, it wasn't even had to do with their basketball fit. It was just the mental makeup of this team just was weak.
So let me guess. I told you I think they have just a raw talent to make it to the Eastern Conference Finals, possibly make it into.
If you look at their team talent-wise, they're probably the most talented team in the East, but I don't think they're the best team.
Which is why I think they come out of the East, but I think they get shell-shocked by whoever they run up against in the finals in the West.
Yeah. It's possible. I don't think come out of the East.
Who is going to beat them? I'm not saying they can't be beat. Trust me, I'm not sold on them. But
well, I mean, it's still so early. Like I said, I don't think we talked about this a little bit last week. I don't think we're going to see the best version of every team until after the little break that they get, because there's no All-Star game this year. But I believe they get a little bit of a break around the time where it was scheduled to be. They get like a week off. I think then teams are going to start to ramp up, and you're actually going to see who is legit, who's not. But I think Philly will challenge them. I think Milwaukee will challenge them. I think Miami, once Miami is healthy, and because I mean, they're coming off short rest too. I think that a lot of people are forgetting that because of Miami's early season struggles.
I was going to say 3 teams, and I forgot about Miami. It was going to be Boston, Philly, and
Boston. Boston was the other team I was getting to. Once they get Kemba back, because Kemba's still hurt, But I mean, you see the way Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown are. And Jaylen, I love Jaylen Brown. I think I would rather have Jaylen Brown than Jason Tatum. But if they're both playing, I think they're both averaging over 26 this year. I mean, Boston's going to be a tough team. So those are 3 teams right off the bat that absolutely will challenge them. And there's a chance that the Nets don't even make it to the conference finals, depending on who's in their bracket in the playoffs.
I agree with that.
Don't sleep on the Pacers either.
I'm not giving the Pacers any type of chance in this.
Hey, I don't know if you've watched much of the Pacers game, man, but Sabonis is on the level so far this year. And I think Oladipo's quickness looks similar to what it was a couple years ago before his injury. But we won't go down there. We'll talk more about the NBA once football season's officially over, because now we're done with college football. Jay, I'll let you take the reins on this one. Your Buckeyes got to the championship game. I told you right before, you said you wanted to take the hat off before we started recording. I told you not to.
Because I can't take the hat off because my hairs get too long right now. I haven't got a haircut for a while. I said I would put it backwards so people couldn't see what was on the
backwards. That's what it was. But I told you not to, because I said, hey, they still made it further than every other team did in college football except for Alabama. And the way you define success, I would say they had a pretty successful season, making it to the national championship game, winning every game except for, obviously, they just lost to the best team in college football. I don't think you should feel much shame in that.
And quite honestly, I don't. I was very surprised at how well I took the loss. And reason being, I just think they got beat by the better team. I think the better team won. I think you look across the board. You could just go down Alabama real fast. They got the Heisman winner at wide receiver, has never won the Heisman in the last 30 years or so.
Since 1991.
So a wide receiver wins it, and it's on Alabama. So that shows you how great he is. They have a Heisman finalist and the quarterback who won the best quarterback in the nation award. I forget. I don't know if it's Doak Walker.
The Davey O'Brien
Award. So the best quarterback in the country was.
And he finished third in Heisman voting.
You got the 5th in Heisman voting running back, who also won best running back in the nation. Mm-hmm. They had the best center in college football, but granted, he was out. This team,
arguably a top 3 left tackle in college football, and Alex Leatherwood.
Did you see how big those linemen were?
Yes.
They looked like they averaged 430 pounds apiece. They were monsters.
If you haven't seen it, there's just a picture of.
Oh, I saw.
I think it's
their
Leatherwood.
Guard.
I didn't mean you, Leatherwood, and I think it was the center that they put in when he tore his ACL. They just had him get a snap at the end of the game, and he's next to Saban and Najee Harris, Devontae Smith, and Mac Jones, and they are just mammoths of human beings.
Yes, and I had someone text me today actually and ask me, what hurt worse, last year's loss against Clemson or this year's loss in the championship game against Alabama? And I said, hands down, it was last year against Clemson. I gave him reason. I said, I feel like Ohio State was the better team last year. I felt like they got hosed on a couple of calls last year, and I really feel like the better team did not win that game. This year, like I said, people want to make excuses. I'm not going to make excuses. Justin Fields played. He was healthy enough to play. He ran on some plays, and he showed how explosive he was. Not an excuse.
I didn't think he looked hurt.
He did.
He didn't grimace or anything. I just didn't think he was very good.
There was a couple guys that were missing from Ohio State. Before the kickoff, we found out they're going to be missing 2 of their starting defensive linemen.
And their kicker. Yeah.
They lost their starting running back on the first play of the game. They lost their all-pro right guard, third quarter maybe. They had some injuries. I don't care if they were fully healthy and had every single one of those players. Alabama was beating them this year. You could not stop – no one stopped Alabama all year long.
No, they didn't.
They did whatever they wanted. Devontae Smith is the best receiver I can remember watching maybe since Calvin Johnson. And I'm not saying that he's going to be the best NFL receiver.
In college, he probably had a better college career than Calvin Johnson because of
that's what
the
I'm saying.
era
Devontae
they played
Smith
and the quarterback that Calvin Johnson played with. Yeah.
What I saw last night, 215 yards or something in the first half with 2 touchdowns.
That's incredible.
Didn't even play the second half. Dude was on pace to go over 400 yards and 4 touchdowns. He couldn't be stopped. No matter what Ohio State did defensively, Sarkisian had a great game plan and schemed him open. He ran back behind the line 3 or 4 different times.
Yeah.
Back, forth, back, and just
he looked like he was running at a different speed than everybody else on the field last night.
I'm curious to see his 40 time. And quite frankly, I don't even care what his 40 time is because he's one of the quickest players I've seen. I've never seen a guy catch a screen and just beat so many people to the sideline and up the field who have the angle, and he's working. When he catches the screen, he's 2 yards from the sideline already, and he beats you to it, and he just jets up the field. Devontae Smith is unreal. Najee Harris, to me, is the best. He's been the best running back in college football since he was a freshman.
He was really good last night.
He set the all-time Alabama record for touchdowns. He beat Derrick Henry by 2 touchdowns, and he did it in 2 less games. The dude's a freak.
There were some confusing defensive – I don't know if they were breakdowns or just the way that the defense was called, how they were defending Alabama last night.
I don't like what they did. And basically the coach came out after the game and said, obviously Alabama's going to get points. We didn't want them to dictate how we were going to play. We were going to play our style of ball and try and force them pretty much to throw.
I'll tell you this. They should have made some adjustments because obviously what they did in the first half clearly did not work. I mean, you had Tuck Borland trying to guard Devontae Smith in a one-on-one situation, and that was a
zone play. That was a zone defense.
And I get it, but he's the only guy there.
I know. And
yes,
that's what I'm saying. I think Steve Sarkisian ran a perfectly called game. Every play he ran just confused. It was whatever Ohio State's defense was, it was a beater for that defense every single play of the game. And Najee Harris had the quietest – I misspoke. It's not the quietest. The loudest, I should say. It's the exact opposite of what I thought it was. When I looked at the stat sheet and saw how many yards Najee rushed for, I was like, he only
carried for 70 yards?
It wasn't. I don't think he broke 100. Now, I know he had 7 catches. He had quite a few catches where he beat us in the pass game too.
From scrimmage, he had over 100 yards, but just on the ground, he did not.
When I saw his rushing numbers, I was like, that's all he had, and that wasn't even a shot to him. He was just he would carry 3 guys. He would be stopped in the backfield and get a 6-yard gain.
Yeah.
He couldn't be stopped. He got smacked on a catch where it was down in the red zone, and right as soon as he touched it, he got destroyed by our safety. Our safety falls to the ground. He catches the ball and just keeps going. I'm like, who is this guy? Mac Jones,
well, it is
500 yards.
Speaking of Najee Harris, that quote that he had after the game was just pretty funny. I sent it to you, but I'll explain it to everybody listening. They asked him how he was able to carve up the Ohio State's defense so effortlessly, and Najee Harris just gets this really confused look on his face. He was like, effortlessly? He said, did you watch the game? He said, they busted my ass. He said, are you kidding me? He said, they blasted my ass. You tripping.
He's to me, he's the best runner. They were the better team. I didn't take this loss. I mean, of course, I would have loved to see them win.
You're upset, and
I've been waiting
the
for
fan in
the
you.
championship game since 2014. They finally made it against Alabama. I was super excited because I was like, I'm going to see the best against the best.
Mm-hmm.
We're coming off of a ass whooping on Clemson. Let's see what we can do against Alabama. And after about 3 drives, I knew we were in deep shit because we start off, we have to punt. We go 3 and out. Alabama drives down like it's
nothing. When they had to settle for that field goal right before, it was one of their last possessions before halftime when they had to settle for that field goal when they could have tied it at 21, and then Alabama went down and scored again, and then they happened to get the ball back and scored again before halftime. But I was like, damn. I was like, they really needed a touchdown right there to keep going blow for blow, because when they got that fumble on Mac Jones and got the ball back quickly and tied it at 14, I was like, that's exactly what Ohio State needed to stay in this game.
Yep.
Because they needed their defense to make a play, get them good field position, do that. And then, like I said, when they had to set up for that field goal, I think that kind of changed everything.
It was fun to watch for 20 minutes. And then after that,
it was exciting if you just like watching good offensive football, which I do. And I mean, Devontae Smith just put on an absolute clinic.
That's
and
the first
receiver's always been my favorite position. Yeah. So that was just he's a baller. Dude is unbelievable.
That's the first time I can ever remember me, having my team in the game, getting their ass whooped, and still being in awe of somebody else. Not frustrated, not like pissed off, like what are you doing?
Yeah,
Which I mean I kind of was, but just sitting there and like watching him and just as a fan, just like how good
just
is
an
this guy?
admiration.
Yes, how
Yeah,
good is this guy? He's their offense. I mean, Waddle, I give Waddle props. Dude can't even walk, but yet he's dusting
no,
Ohio State
yeah.
DBs and then
I mean,
hobbling off.
the
So
one catch that he had across the middle, and
yeah,
I mean, you saw the speed, you saw the burst, and then you could tell that just absolutely killed him.
yeah. I think me coming to grips with just that Ohio State just they got beat by the better team. Alabama was the better team.
That's fair.
That makes it hurt less than last year's loss or
Yeah.
a 28-point loss to Purdue, 31
No, I
point
get you.
to Iowa. So that one didn't hurt as bad, and I think the best team won. Hats off to Nick Saban. I'm ready for him to retire. The dude's about 70 years old. He needs to go 7 championships and bounce so that other
somebody
chance.
somebody tweeted. He works at Pro Football Focus. He tweeted. He said, "Nick Saban's at that point, or at the point of your career in or an NCAA 14 where you've won every dynasty. You just want to restart over with Wyoming."
Yeah, basically. I don't
I
think
mean,
what Nick Saban's done will ever be done again. Ever.
it's one of the most impressive things I've ever seen, because again, you're just having to recruit every year to replenish your talent, and he does it year after year. It's
I had
it's
to
it's it's incredible.
I had a conversation, a little debate with my buddy's dad the other day because his whole thing was he said Nick Saban's a great recruiter, he's not a great coach, and I'm like, you're out of your mind if you don't think he's a great coach. He won
I
a
agree with
championship
that.
at LSU. He goes to Alabama. Sure, he's a great recruiter, and when you get the best prospects, you're supposed to win. I understand that, but he does that every single year. Year after year, he loses his offensive coordinators, his defensive coordinators. He loses all his players to
Mhm.
the NFL. And every year he gets new guys in there, coaches them up. And not only does he coach them up to win championships, hats off to him for adapting. He's 70 years old, and he's gone from a team that will just line up with 6 linemen and a tight end and just pound it down your throat to a spread offense with mobile quarterbacks. And he's doing it the exact same way everybody else is right now. And
Yeah.
he's adapting. He's winning. He's won 7
Well,
championships.
and the thing is I think a lot of his recruiting is just based off his success that he's had. Because I mean, again, he might have been he's still probably a really good recruiter, but I mean, he can literally, I mean, kids our age, I mean, when we were 16, 17, 18, I mean, you would see all these teams have a lot of success, and you're just like, well, they give me the best chance to win. It looks like they give me the best chance to go to the NFL, to further my career. Why wouldn't you go there? And then, like you mentioned, he's been able to adapt to all the time. So it's clearly that he's a very good coach. He's very good at little details. He's compared to Bill Belichick all the time because they coach together. And that's the kind of the model that you go off of, the Patriots to Alabama for college football. I mean, he's just been able to succeed in 2 straight decades.
I think he's been at Alabama for 14 seasons. I think that's what I
That's
read.
yeah. 06 was it was 07 was his first year.
And
Yeah.
he's been to 8 championship games.
Yeah.
So he's been there more times than he hasn't been.
He's
And
been in the playoff every year it's existed.
he was ranked number 1 from the start of this season till they were crowned champions at the very end.
And I mean, they dominated everybody.
There's-
Everybody.
To me,
Texas A&M's best argument was that we only lost by 20 to Alabama to try and get into the playoff.
yeah, exactly. I
So
think there's 2 coaches in football that rank among everybody, and then you can just tier people below them. It's Belichick and Saban are the 2 greatest coaches I think I've ever seen, and not only because I wasn't alive before, I don't even care. I think they're the 2 greatest coaches that have ever coached football. And whether that be because over the years knowledge has been passed down to them, people have gained knowledge throughout the sport every year, and then now we're in the present, so they have the most knowledge. I don't know. They're the 2 greatest coaches I've ever seen coach football. One just does it in college, one does it in the NFL. And hats off to Nick Saban. And until he retires, that train ain't slowing down.
no, it's not. It really isn't. So, yeah. But I will say this: if Clemson would have beaten Ohio State, I think they'd have got shellacked just like that too.
I don't think it would have been any closer.
Exactly. I think it maybe would have been even a further margin. So
yeah,
we'll move on. We'll move on to get your mind off your Buckeyes, Jay. We'll talk about some NFL stuff. Let's start before we get into any of the games, and let's talk about Doug Peterson real quick.
Okay.
Just getting let go from the Eagles, because I was actually pretty shocked. I texted you as soon as it happened, and you were like, I actually wasn't that shocked. I was, because it's hard to find good coaching in the NFL. I think you see that year after year. I mean, with Joe, just so much. I had a rant last week on the podcast about how there's so much incompetent in coaching in the NFL. It's unbelievable how much money these guys make, and it seems like they do this week after week, and they still keep getting jobs somewhere. Doug Peterson, I mean, he won the Super Bowl, and then he was an Alshon Jeffrey drop pass away from going to another NFC Championship game. Possibly could have made it to the Super Bowl in back-to-back years. Carson Wentz gets cheap-shotted last year in the playoffs by Jadeveon Clowney, gets knocked out. I think they probably beat Seattle last year in that game with a healthy Carson Wentz. Then Wentz just self-implodes. I think it's more mental than actual physical abilities on the field, because we've seen him have so much success. And he said that he was just tired of people telling him what to do all the time in Philly. I mean, it's a tough place to coach as far as it's in an organization, the fan base. I mean, Andy Reid had so much success there. He got fired, and look what he's doing in Kansas City. I mean, he was never a bad coach. I actually saw, speaking of Andy Reid, I saw today all 4 coaches that are left in the AFC have worked for Andy Reid. So that just shows you that his coaching tree is just incredible. So I was just kind of shocked, because I think Doug Peterson is a really good coach. He just so happened to have a bad year. And maybe it's good for him to get a change of scenery, because he can go coach, if the Chargers want Justin Herbert, another good young quarterback with a pretty damn good roster. They just need an actual coach who knows what he's doing.
Yeah, the Lions could definitely use him, that's for sure.
Lions are another one.
I don't think, from what I heard Peter Schrager say, and he's pretty connected, he basically said the Jets are too far along in their process, that I don't think they're going to take a solid look at Doug Peterson, because they're probably already working on their second round of interviews from coaches that they've already interviewed. So,
well, I mean, he has a very good relationship with Joe Douglas, their new GM, because Joe Douglas was in Philly for a while.
I just trust what Peter Schrager says, because the dude's so.
I do too. I wouldn't. I'm just saying I won't count it out.
So, the reason I wasn't shocked is because, like you just mentioned about Philly fans and the uprising, it doesn't take much to piss them off and want to overthrow the captain. Andy Reid was the prime example. That's why it didn't surprise me. And it seems here that the owner is definitely taking quarterback over coach. Because
no doubt. He's taking that contract.
Yeah, at this point, you're not severing the relationship between Doug Peterson and Carson Wentz. Not that I think they hate each other, but it's clear that Carson Wentz went on a quick downhill spiral this year. Not saying he can't get back to where he was, but once he started going on that slide, Peterson yanked him and put Hurts in. That does a little something to him. Then Hurts starts having some success, and then Carson starts hearing all the talk about, well, I don't know why they wouldn't ride with Hurts. They need to get rid of Wentz and just go with Hurts.
So, this is the second time it's happened to Carson, because the same thing happened with Nick Foles.
Yeah. I wasn't that surprised, and I have no doubt that Doug Peterson will be picked up quick as shit.
He's too good of a head coach to just not have a job. And there's way too many openings.
Yeah.
I mean, you also have Atlanta. I don't know if that'd be somewhere he'd be wanting to go, because I think the Falcons are going to have a major rehaul of that roster, which is much needed. But I mean, who are some other jobs that are open right now? I think we named 4. I think there's the Jaguars jobs open. I don't know if that's something that the Texans is another one. So there's a lot of openings, and I mean, it's like I said, it's just hard to find good coaching.
Yeah, it is.
It is. I mean,
I'd like to
Chuck Pagano. I just got an alert that Chuck Pagano was retiring as a defensive coordinator.
Yep.
He was the Colts head coach for way too long, in my opinion, as a Colts fan. I mean, I couldn't stand the guy as the coach. I think Frank Reich is one of the best coaches the Colts have ever had. I truly do. I know that we'll get to that game. we'll just actually right into this. This can segue us right into the Bills and the Colts because I really like Frank. I just think he had sometimes he has bad games. I mean, it happens to all coaches. I mean, it's happened to Belichick before. It's happened to Saban before as well. It just happens, but it's just hard to find good coaching. That being said, I think Frank Reich has to look at himself in the mirror at that Buffalo loss and say, I left points on the board right before halftime with a field goal. I didn't think that was a time in the game to be that aggressive because the Colts basically had all the momentum. They had a 10-7 lead. They could have gone up 13-7 and then kicked it deep and made the Bills drive 85 yards to go get it, or 75 yards to go get a touchdown right before half, or even a field goal. I mean, because they really hadn't done much after that first drive that the Bills had. The Colts looked like they were the team in control, and then that little thing where they didn't convert on fourth down just gave the Bills just an extra little momentum going into, because they're like, all right, we get this. They missed their opportunity. Let's go get ours right before half, take the lead. We get the ball to start the second half. His challenge, I thought, was very, very questionable.
That was a bad call on his part.
I don't know if he was getting word from upstairs. I don't know what the whole story is behind that, but that was another bad decision by Frank Reich. So I just think that he needs to take a lot of ownership for that game, which I think he did.
Which he has, yep. And I've listened to his post-game interviews. So that challenge, he took full responsibility for. He basically said, we had time to review it. The ref was telling me if we wanted it to be reviewed, we had to challenge it. The refs weren't going to just go look at it on their own. And at that point, he kind of made a judgment call to throw the flag. And he was like, I regret it now because they even had, I think there was a TV timeout and they had a little more time to even look at it. And he just went ahead and challenged it. And that was their second timeout lost of the half. And they were down to one in the third quarter. So not good. Frank Reich did call a pretty bad game. I was very critical, and I still believe, obviously hindsight's 2020, still believe they should have ran the ball right up the middle on third and
we were talking about that. I didn't like that third down play either.
And I did hear him address that after the game. He said, we haven't ran a pitch all year. We thought we were going to catch them off guard. They've watched film on us. They should have been expecting to run up the middle. We threw a pitch because we've never ran it in the season. They weren't I wouldn't think they'd be expecting it, and they just snuffed it out and got it. And he's like, at that point, do I wish now that we would have ran it 2 straight times right behind Quentin? Of course I do. But at that time, I made the call because I thought it was going to beat what they thought we were doing. So I get all the strategy. He called a bad game. All that being said, Buffalo being the 2 seed, Indianapolis being the 7 seed, they still went to Buffalo and took it all the way to the very end of the game with a chance to win. I think you got some positives to look at, and Frank Reich definitely needs to look himself in the mirror, learn from it, learn what coaching mistakes he cannot make going forward. Ballard needs to get a couple more playmakers on that roster. Hats off to Buffalo. After that first quarter where I was texting you talking shit on Josh Allen, he turned into a completely different player.
You texted me like 2 quarters later and said, if the Bills lose this game, it's not on Josh Allen.
Exactly.
And I about fell over in my chair.
And then what happened? What happened the very next play?
It just happened to Soviet that he made a stupid play.
Gets sacked on third down where you can't do. Takes like a 20-yard loss, fumbles the ball, and luckily they got it back.
His offensive lineman picked it up.
Right
that was just
I ate my own words and say, hey, this
clear bonehead play.
Josh. He does the one thing you couldn't do in that situation. But
other than that one play, he basically played a flawless game.
He played great. And the big part of it was his legs. When shit would break down, he would get out of trouble, he'd scramble. And that arm is so he might have more of an effortless throw than Patrick Mahomes.
It looks like it.
Now, Mahomes is more accurate. Mahomes can make probably some more throws where you're just like, what did I just witness? But it looks like when you're watching this guy, he's just out here just flicking his wrist, and that is a spiral going 180 miles an hour right where it needs to go. So
in the first quarter, that throw that he had to Stephon Diggs, he was standing flat-footed, flicked his wrist 40 yards on a rope to Stephon Diggs right down the seam.
So
I know I've seen a lot of people trying to still criticize Josh Allen. I mean, he's still got his haters out there, obviously, and I don't know what it will take for them to finally just say, hey, this guy actually played well. And I mean, he had like almost 400 total yards from scrimmage, 3 touchdowns, no turnovers, and he got his first playoff victory. So, I mean,
that's what I told you before the game. I told you, I said, I want to see him do it in the playoffs. Until then, I'm going to have questions on what he can do.
And I think that's fair.
And it happened.
But, Josh Allen, again, that was only his second ever playoff game.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that is I like their chances.
Yeah, and I don't know if we're previewing anything, but I fully expect them to go to Buffalo in a snowy field where Lamar's probably going to struggle and beat the Ravens.
Well, let's just talk about that real quick. Then we'll talk about the Ravens, and we'll just kind of recap the Ravens and Titans, and then we'll go talk about Bills, Titans, or Bills and Ravens, because I was really happy for Lamar for getting his first playoff victory, because we just talked about this previously. Success, obviously, there's only one team that can win the Super Bowl or the national championship every single year. If you only define success by winning the Super Bowl, you're just going to not find much success ever in life, period.
You can't be a Vikings fan, can't be a Texans fan, you can't be any of these teams that have never won the Super Bowl. And that's not even a number. The Bills have been to 4, never won one. So
exactly,
judge success just off of that. I got you 100%.
And so, like I've said, but I mean, Lamar is only in his 3rd year. I mean, he'd won an MVP, and I was one of his biggest critics coming in. I mean, and I've had to eat my words a ton, but it was never that I didn't like the guy or didn't root for the guy. But I thought that they were going to lose, but I was actually rooting for him to win, because I was tired of everyone saying, well, that's all you hear when you hear about the Ravens is, oh, well, he's been bad in his first 2 playoff games, and he was, rightfully so. I mean, but that's all you could hear. Oh, well, it doesn't matter what he does in the regular season because he has to win it in the postseason. And I mean, I think that's fair to an extent, but I told you, I think regular season success does have value, or you wouldn't play the damn games at all. I mean, you would just go into like a round robin tournament and say, okay, you lose, you're out. Then the season doesn't count for anything. So, and they looked dead in the water, the Ravens did, after they were down like 10-0. And then it was that 3rd and 9, 70-yard touchdown run that he had where he just turned on the Jets. And then after that, it was like the Ravens game, and they stuffed Derrick Henry. He couldn't do anything. Ryan Tannehill looked uncomfortable. So props to the Ravens and Lamar, and I was happy for him.
Let me ask you this. Would you pay Lamar Jackson to be franchise quarterback at the going rate of today after what you've seen through, 3 years?
I would have to know what the number is, because I wouldn't pay him Russell Wilson, Deshaun Watson, Patrick Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers type money. But, I mean, if he's going to get similar money to a Matthew Stafford, a Matt Ryan.
He's going to get the money of today's rate. He's about to be paid. And I think I'd pay him. And
I would feel okay paying him $30 million a year, which is probably going to be pretty close to what he gets.
I actually think he'll probably get closer. Like
I mean, I think he's 32-7 as a starter. I mean, he's gotten to the playoffs every single year. Now that I'm rethinking that, yeah, I'd feel comfortable paying him that.
I would too, and the reason being, he doesn't take a lot of big hits. And I was having a debate
with basically every player in the entire league.
I was watching the game with a friend, and he asked me if I would pay him, and I said, absolutely. I'd take him on the Colts in a heartbeat. I'd pay him the going rate. I'd pay him the franchise money. And he's like, I wouldn't pay him. I don't think he can throw that well. And I was like, if you watch these games, he doesn't have to. He can throw well enough, and he makes up for it with those legs. And almost right on cue, 70-yard touchdown run. And I'm like, yeah, that's why you pay him right there. Because
he did have a really bad throw. That pick he threw to Malcolm Butler was awful.
And then he does plays like what I said. But
then at the end of the game, they needed his legs, and he sealed the game for him with a first down. There you go.
It's so hard to stop their run game because no matter what play it is, you better have someone accounted for him. It's 11 on 11. It's not 11 on 10 like it normally is. So He's just such a threat and so fun to watch. He might be the most fun player to watch in the league. He's right up there with Mahomes and Watson, Derrick Henry, just fun guys to watch, but the dude's electric. The dude's a top quarterback in the league. I don't care that he doesn't have the arm of Josh Allen. He doesn't have the accuracy of Aaron Rodgers. They don't have the legs of Lamar Jackson.
No, they don't.
Everybody.
Nobody does. I mean, a guy who's very similar is a guy like Josh Allen who they're getting ready to play. I mean, no, Josh Allen's not like a 4.3 guy, but I think Josh Allen was a 4.5 I think.
He's fast enough. And he's big enough to be running
and he's huge. I mean, he's trucking dudes almost every week, and he's hurdling guys. But that's going to be a really fun matchup. The Bills and the Ravens. I don't know if they play Saturday or Sunday. It doesn't matter. One of the 2 days they play. But I think that's going to be a really exciting matchup because you get 2 quarterbacks from the draft class of 2018, which actually had a really successful weekend because we'll talk about the Browns and the Steelers next. But the class of 2018, the quarterbacks had a pretty damn good Saturday, Sunday, winning 3 playoff games.
Yeah, they did.
And, I mean, I don't know if you want to pick a winner. I like the Bills just because I think they will act unlike what the Titans were able to do. The Bills can actually have a very good passing game, and I think they can attack the Ravens secondary with Diggs and Cole Beasley. And, I mean, Josh Allen, you saw – again, against our Colts, what he was able to do, just moving in the pocket and getting out of plays that had no business succeeding. I mean, he was able to extend it, and I just think they're going to be able to put up enough points because I do think that the Bills are maybe more suited to contain Lamar than what the Titans were able to do.
Titans' defense is ass. It has no pass rush. They're not good. Bills have the better defense, and I think they have the better team. What?
You said they're just bad.
They are. They're not. Their defense.
Yeah, the Titans' defense is bad all year.
Their defense is bad. They're not very good. Their offense has some studs, but that's what I told you before the game was I'll give their offense a wash because they can both run the ball really well, and they got quarterbacks that can make plays. So I'm going to wash out their offenses. And then I'll take the Ravens defense. And I'll take the Ravens special teams. And I think that was the difference in the game. So when it comes to the Bills,
albeit Justin Tucker did miss a field goal, which is very rare.
It was odd. Now when it comes to the Bills, I'll take the Bills offense. I'll slightly take the Ravens defense, maybe. But then again, you're at home, so I might even lean the Bills defense at home. I just think the Bills are the better team, and this might be the first Lamar game in the snow, so I don't know how that's going to work out for him. I think the Bills will win a close one. I don't think the Ravens are going to put up the 35 points that it's going to take to outscore the.
Yeah, I think you've seen when the Ravens come up with it's kind of similar. I mean, the Bills' offense is not as good as the Chiefs' offense is. It's just not. But when the Ravens played the Chiefs, I mean, you just saw how quickly the Chiefs were able to jump out on top of the Ravens, and the Ravens just weren't able to overcome that at all. I think that's going to be similar to it just because I think the Bills' offense is that special this year.
Agreed. You want to go to the Browns? You mentioned them earlier.
Yeah. I mean, I'll let you take the lead on this one, Jay.
I did hear something kind of cool that I hadn't really thought about. You made me think of it earlier when you talked about the 2018 draft class. Someone asked, is this the 2004 draft class passing the torch down to the 2018 because Phillip Rivers and Big Ben and Eli all came in 04. I know Eli's gone now, but both the 04 guys, Big Ben and Rivers, just lost to the 2018 draft class quarterbacks. And when I say Big Ben lost, damn, he looked bad. To me, I read something today that said Big Ben just didn't quit when he was down 28-0. He's a fighter. He came back. He came back because the Bills or the Browns started playing a little bit of prevent. I'm up 28 points in the first quarter. Let's just not blow this, and let's just keep methodically getting our points when we can.
Yeah, they didn't need anything from him.
So when your quarterback throws 70 times in a game, I expect him to throw for around 500 yards. So especially when you're going up against a prevent defense who's up 28 points, just allowing you to get yards, not points.
Yeah.
Never once did I think the Steelers had a chance in that game. Never once was I worried that the Browns were going to lose after the game. I picked the Steelers to win. I thought the Steelers were going to win. What I'm saying is during the game, once the Browns jumped out to that lead, no part of me believed they were going to lose. So hats off to Baker. They got the Browns their first win. They flat out dominated the Steelers. The Steelers have no run game. We've been saying it all year. I look back now and agree with the guys that said the Steelers are the worst 11-0 team I've ever seen. Big Ben, to me, is washed. He should go ahead and hang it up, and that's not a knock on him. He's had a phenomenal career. The dude's he's going to be a Hall of Famer. He's got some rings. I don't know what else to say about the guy. The Steelers definitely need a quarterback at this point. I'm not looking to bring Big Ben
Hold
back.
on, Jay.
Dude, I can't stop the recording because you're jacking up.
My batteries died in my headphones.
Well, you just figure out what you've got going on. I'm going to keep talking about the game.
You're paused on here.
Because the recording's still going on. So this is going to be the YouTube video.
A little bit of my batteries in my headphones just went out. But we were talking about Steelers and Browns, and basically how the Steelers just got their ass completely kicked by the Browns from the minute. I mean, once that snap was over Big Ben's head, I was like, this is not going to end well. And I mean, then you saw the long Jarvis Landry touchdown. You saw Big Ben throw another pick, and then they got ball in good field position, and just an odd performance by this. It really wasn't that odd because their offense really hadn't been performing that well all season. I heard you making the point about how he threw for like 500 yards and 4 TDs, but he also threw 4 picks.
Oh, you could hear
68
that
times.
Jacked up headphones.
Yeah, well, I heard bits and pieces. It was kind of cut in and out on my end, so I caught some of it, catch all of it. But I mean, they were in that spot because he just turned the ball over early. I mean, they couldn't get any stops, and you really can't blame the Steelers defense all that much because of how bad positions the offense put them in. But I told you this. I said, I think this was the last run for that group of the Pittsburgh Steelers because they're all old. They're in cap hell. They have a lot of younger guys that need paid. I mean, they're probably just not going to be able to pay all of them. And if this is the Big Ben you're going to get next year, I think it's just going to be even worse because I think the Big Ben you're going to see next year is what you saw the last like 6 or 7 weeks of the season.
Yeah, he needs to go. That's what I said before you jacked up my video, that Big Ben just needs to retire. He needs to hang it up.
First time, yeah.
Yeah, that this team isn't going to be the same next year, like you just said. And with no money and you're paying a quarterback who can't perform anymore, in my eyes, there's no way he's getting you to the top, at least. So then why pay the guy? So Big Ben had a phenomenal career. He's going in the Hall of Fame, but it's time for him to hang it up and the Steelers to go in a new direction. I know you want Stafford on the Colts. I think Stafford would be perfect in Pittsburgh. I told
you I just want Stafford on the Colts because I don't think Philly's going to dump Wentz anymore. I don't think they're going to trade him. So Stafford's the best option that the Colts can try and go out and get. But I told you, I said there's no – unless Big Ben retires, there's no way the Steelers can fit Stafford's contract. They just can't do it.
There's always ways to get around the money, but the Steelers, we were
wrong.
But we were high on them at the beginning of the season. They go 11-0.
Yeah.
Then they shit the bed.
And they changed a lot because they lost Bud Dupree. They lost Devin Bush. They lost some big pieces to their defense. You saw it last night. They didn't have Joe Hayden either. And, I mean, the Browns were picking on – I can't even remember the corner's name, but they were picking on him a lot. And the Browns don't even have that great of a passing game. It's their running attack that's what charged their offense. But
how about the Browns? We've been talking a lot about the Steelers. The Browns came out and won the game.
The Browns were being impressive.
They go next week and play who?
They have no shot against the Chiefs.
Yeah.
I'm giving them a -% chance to win that game.
Especially because they're going to be riding so high on emotion into that game.
Yes.
Andy Reid's phenomenal off a bye. They're coming in.
And the point you said about the Chiefs, where you said you just thought they were bored for a lot of the regular season.
I do.
And once you said that, it really just got me thinking because I think you're right because you saw and when they wanted to turn it on,
you can't
damn well they could turn it on.
Yeah.
It is an unstoppable offense. And even if they get down 20 points, I have no worry because I've seen them do it before multiple times where they
They can
just come
score
back.
20 in half of a quarter.
They're never out of a game with
Yeah.
that offense, ever. And I think the Browns – I don't think the Browns can score near enough points what the Chiefs are going to be able to do because for what the – I mean, you saw what the success Big Ben had through the air. If he didn't turn the ball over, I mean, it maybe have been a closer game, but Patrick Mahomes just doesn't turn the ball over like that.
Nope.
I give him 0% chance.
But
Good for the Browns. They got in the playoffs.
Won a game.
Had a successful season. Even if they go get slaughtered next week at Kansas City, they had a successful year.
Agreed.
And this is something to build off of.
Exactly. So there's our AFC. Go to the NFC.
Let's start with the love fest that everybody had for Mr. Thomas, Patrick, Edward, whatever his name is, Brady.
Fuck him. His name's Tom Brady.
That bitch in Tampa Bay who got to play arguably one of the worst playoff teams in the history of the NFL because they're one of 5 teams ever to make the postseason with a losing record. Just think about that. The NFL has been on for 100 years, and there has been 5 teams that have made it with a losing record. And
hold on, which one of those 5 teams is on their third string quarterback?
Probably none of them. This was their 4th quarterback they played this year. Their starting quarterback is ruled out minutes before, like the day before the game happens. And of course, I'm just like, that is the most Tom Brady thing ever. That would never happen to any other player in the history of the world. And it never has, and it probably never will again. It's the most Tom Brady thing ever. And they still didn't even look that great. And Washington took them to the bone and I wouldn't say they almost beat them, but I think they got everybody. They're like, oh, okay, well, they were looking at, well, maybe they really aren't that bad. No, they were because their defense, the Chase Young called out Tom Brady, didn't even sniff Tom Brady. He was nowhere to be found on Saturday night or Sunday night, whenever day it was. But my God, the Saints play him, and I just absolutely hope it's round 3 of ass kicking for the Saints on the Bucs this year.
I heard someone say there's no way Tom Brady's going to beat a team. Or Tom Brady's going to lose to the same team 3 games in one season, 3 times in one season.
Yeah, I've seen that too.
It's happening. The Saints are, like you just said, the 7-9 Washington Redskins on their 4th quarterback of the season took them to the end of the game and had a legit shot in the 4th quarter to come win that game. And the Buccaneers just finally put it away, but ain't happening against Saints. Tom Brady has to go to New Orleans and play Breeze and those boys. The Saints defense is going to be all over Tom Brady.
I think they've sacked him like 8 times this year. He has 5 interceptions.
Wasn't it like 40-3?
They've only scored a total of 27 points in 2 games against them. Their last game was 38-3 in Tampa. And that was arguably one of Tom Brady's worst games of his career because the Saints are able to get pressure with their front 4, something Washington was unable to do, even though in the theory you think they would. But, I mean, and the Saints actually have guys that can cover the Buccaneers receivers, which Washington did not. They also actually have a quarterback who has experience of winning in the playoffs before. They have actual wide receivers that people know their names on their team, and one of the best running backs in the league, and Alvin Kamara.
And a good offensive line.
And a good offensive line. I mean, I have nothing to say about that Bears game because the Saints absolutely just killed the Bears. I mean, the Bears are the Bears.
I'm in agreement. That shit was trash.
Yeah,
I did see where they're probably going to keep Pace and Nagy.
Which is fine. Whatever.
I don't even think it's fine. I would not keep Nagy. I don't think he's that great of a coach.
I'm not a Bears fan, so
that's true too.
I don't think Nagy's that good of a coach, and we've been on this for years.
Bears fans should be happy because the best thing that happened to you is you lost. Because if y'all would have won, we talked about this, you would have felt the need to re-sign Mitchell Trubisky and screwed yourself over for the next years in the future. So congrats on losing because now you're not going to be tied down to Mr. Trubisky going forward.
Yeah, agreed. But I'm with you. I think the Saints beat the Buccaneers.
Bad.
They better, man. Or I mean, all we're just going to hear about is.
I know. I think one of the funniest things I saw was they did like a Photoshop of Breeze standing next to Brady. It was like kind of like the Monday Night Football thing.
I think Brady actually was the one that edited that
To put beards on them
and like made all their gray hair
and put it on the History Channel.
Yeah, maybe he just reposted it. I don't know if he essentially made it.
He probably reposted it, but I thought that shit was funny.
I told my dad, I said that's exactly what Tom Brady's hair would look like if he didn't dye it 10 times a week. You know that dude straight up just dyes his hair because Giselle doesn't let him have gray hair on national television. That's why he didn't grow out his beard anymore because it's all gray.
We're getting off track, man. We're going down.
Sorry, I just hate him.
A rabbit hole.
So, all right, the other NFC game. What even was the other NFC game?
It was the Rams.
Oh yeah, the disaster that the Seahawks put on national television.
Yep.
That was the worst game I've ever seen Russell Wilson play.
I don't understand. This is the worst second half of football I've ever seen Russell Wilson play. Like I said,
you mean of the season?
Yes. We started out, he would look phenomenal. He was in the MVP race all the way up.
Through the first 7 or 8 weeks, he was the MVP of the league.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden, I don't know what happened. The offense didn't change. The defense should have gotten better with Jamal Adams coming back and everything. I saw they fired Brian Schottenheimer, their offensive coordinator. I don't know if he had anything to do with it, but at the end of the day, all blame on Russell Wilson. What has he been doing?
He was bad.
I don't know where his head's been. He's been turning the ball over. He hasn't been putting up the points on the board. How do you?
He hasn't been as accurate.
No, I don't know what's going on with him. I'd like to find that out.
I would too, because he just didn't look. I don't know if he was literally drinking his own Kool-Aid because he had talked about it before, how he felt disrespected because he had never even received one single MVP vote,
which is accurate.
Which is probably is stupid because he absolutely should have in at least one of his seasons ever, if not finished maybe second or third in the voting. But they're not even receiving
one MVP vote his rookie year.
Which season? Yeah. So I don't know if he was really trying to hype that up. And then he was like, "Oh, all these talk shows are actually talking about me. I'm getting a lot of this MVP buzz." I don't know if he just read too much into that. I don't know. I don't know what it was because I don't know how to explain it. Because after week 8, 9, or 10, he had just maybe a few good quarters. I don't even know if you could say he had any good games after that. They won a few games, but I don't know if he was even that good.
I believe
any of those games throughout.
I think the downfall wasn't it I think the first bad game I can remember was Arizona, where he threw a couple picks. He threw one to Buda Baker down in the red zone.
Mm-hmm. Well, it was at home. Yeah, it's where DK Metcalf takes him down. Yep.
Yeah. I don't know what's going on with him.
I can't explain it.
I can't either. That was my Super Bowl pick. I thought he was the best quarterback in the NFL coming into the year, and we'll have to see what the heck he does.
They were my preseason Super Bowl pick, but I changed it because I just didn't think they could.
Yeah, I should have.
After what I saw what the Packers were able to do this season, I mean, just how good they played. But I do think you also have to give a lot of credit to the Rams, what they were able to do to go into Seattle, not knowing who really their quarterback was going to play. I mean, they basically won with, barely even playing. Jared Goff only completed like 9 passes. John Wolford got knocked down in the first quarter. It was that defense that carried them. They had that pick 6. Aaron Donald was just out of this world. Fantastic.
They did say he's playing next week.
I would bet my life savings that he would try and play in the playoffs because, if he doesn't play, they really don't have a shot. And it's going to be a nice matchup next week for Jalen Ramsey against Devontae Adams. See what Aaron Rodgers can do if he can. Those LA Rams go into cold Green Bay. Let's see if they can do it. I don't think they can because I don't think the Rams offense is going to be able to put up enough points. I don't think they're going to be able to score enough because even if Goff's thumb isn't fully healed, Goff can have a Goff game where he turns the ball over 4 times because there's some games this year where he's looked like he was trying to give the game away.
I'm with you. I'll take the Packers.
Yeah. So I like the Packers. So we got a Packers-Saints NFC Championship game against a Bills-Chiefs.
Yep.
Those will be the top 2 seeds in both conferences.
Chalk might walk this year.
That doesn't happen a lot.
No, it's very rare.
But it's a weird year. Weird things can happen, Jay.
I agree with you.
Yeah. But I was a huge fan of the extra wild card game.
Now, next year, don't they go to 18 games?
Well, I don't know if they've officially decided that. I think it was leaning towards going 18 games, but I don't know if they've officially said yes or no. I know they're eventually going to get there, it seems like.
I've told you, the only thing that I really hate about that, I love that they're doing 18 games because I want more football. I want more games that mean something. So you're taking 2 games away from preseason. That's fantastic. The thing that I hate is in 20 years, stats are going to be so inflated.
They are.
Because
they're already getting that way.
I know, but now everybody's going to have
it's even
more
going to be
games
more
a year.
You're going to have to look at them like
you're going to have to look at averages per game.
Per game, exactly. Yeah. You're not going to be able to look at per season anymore. And even those you have to take into consideration as well. Because the quarterbacks that even played 10 years ago don't even have the same numbers as the guys that are going to come in now. Because, I mean, who's to say, this just for an example, I mean, Josh Allen has more career numbers than John Elway and Dan Marino. Does that mean he's a better quarterback? No, he just has better stats. And kids that are 8 right now are like, oh, well, his stats are better. So that must mean he was a better player in his career, which doesn't necessarily mean anything. But you get my point.
Yep. So that's the only gripe I have on it.
Anyways.
What else you got?
Yeah. That's it, man. We covered a lot.
We did. And sorry about the video problems and the audio difficulties. We're going to work on this. I can see that every time I do this and then come back over here, the light starts jacking up. So I'm going to work on some stuff on my end.
Play with your lighting.
Yep. Nick's going to work on some stuff on his end.
Yes. Hopefully my batteries just don't die in my headphones again, because that was really only my issues.
If it sounds bad on your guys' end, if you think we could do something different, let us know.
Comment below.
Yep.
You'll, again, subscribe anywhere to us.
The video might look a little funky at first because I'm trying some new stuff, trying some new software. We're going to figure it out, though. So, Nick, if you don't have anything, until next time.
Until next time.